Marine reacts to Exploring the SCP Foundation, AntiMemetics, by the Exploring series. As always, I'm going to be leaving a link to the original video channel down in the description below, so go ahead and make sure that you check them out. So real quick, I'm going to be saying it again for a little while. As far as there's any pauses, any weird segments that seem to disrupt the flow of the video, just know that maybe I had to cut some out or mute certain sounds, pretty much all the sounds, because the music that plays gets copyright claimed, and that hasn't really happened with the SCP videos except for maybe the Confinement series. As far as Warhammer is concerned, it's happened more there, but just know if that does happen, that is the case. Now with AntiMemetics, don't know really too much about them. I do know that they do mess with the mind, and since this is just called AntiMemetics, I'm assuming it's going to be like the anomalous diseases video, where they're just going to have like a little group of them and then discuss which ones, I don't know, ones that are more important, or just choose like some random ones, just because maybe they're like the most interesting at this point. But in any case, let's go ahead and get to the actual video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, it really does help me a lot. Hit the notification bell right there. You get notified every time I do upload. Sometimes I'll upload twice a day. Now I'm working on them whenever I can, and then releasing them early the next day. That way when you all wake up, you have a fresh new video, first thing in the morning. So without further ado, let's go ahead and see what AntiMemetics there are in the SCP universe.
AntiMemetics. What is a meme? Yes, I know what you're thinking, but stay with me. A meme is anything that carries cultural ideas or practices and spreads throughout a culture organically. The concept of memes nowadays generally exists in the form of images on the internet with overlaid text intended for humor. But followers of memetics believe that memes function much in the same way as genes, evolving and mutating, and have existed in some forms throughout history. The point of this is that the concept of memetics concerns the natural transmission of ideas and information, as memes are designed to easily spread across a culture. With that in mind, we can then define an anti-meme, the opposite of a meme, that instead of lending itself to spreading ideas, will instead prevent itself from being spread. In layman's terms, as far as the SCP universe is concerned, an anti-meme is an anomaly that censors itself, preventing observers from learning about or spreading it. I think it's best if we just dive into some various SCPs to show more of what I'm talking about.
Before he does do that, as far as with memes and them being able to really be able to be transferred very easily, obviously just through social media. I mean, you could share. Some people even take screenshots. Say if people's profiles on Instagram, for example, are private, they'll take a screenshot and then they'll send it to a buddy. AntiMemetics, I don't. So the AntiMemetic aspect is that I feel like that's gonna maybe be if it's not explained later on in the video, that it has to do with something, maybe an antimemetic being sometimes sentient, maybe, just because I feel like that's been coming up a lot lately as well, especially with that anomalous disease from the previous video. And the fact, but I don't understand why it would want it to not spread, or unless have it spread, whatever it may be, in its own terms, like not something that kind of like willy-nilly. Say for example, a zombie virus, which will just spread from people biting each other, but maybe it wants to mess with people specifically, certain things specifically, and it wants to do it on its own terms. But let's go ahead and see what kind of anti-memetics there are actually out there.
The quintessential anti-memetic SCP is SCP-055, and really there's not much more I can tell you about it. Any information gleaned from or about 055 is almost immediately forgotten, and while there has been a great amount of data recorded about 055, no one can keep that data in their head. This includes how the Foundation acquired it, when it was acquired, its physical appearance, and the specifics of why or who constructed 055's containment room in such a specific way. Its containment cell is a 5 by 5 by 2.5 meter room made of 50 centimeter thick cement with a Faraday cage surrounding it. The containment procedures specifically note that guards are not to be posted outside of the cell, and all personnel studying or maintaining other SCPs should try and stay at least 50 meters away from the center of the room. The anomaly's physical appearance and traits are not indescribable, and there are plenty of notes, drawings, photos, and videos of it But the anti-memetic quality of 055 causes this information to leak out of a person's mind. Personnel who spend time observing 055 through security cameras end up walking away with no memory of their time. And even people tasked with describing 055 while observing it tend to quickly lose interest in the task.
But they did mention a 50-meter radius as far as like the guards and people staying away from it, or people who are researching and studying it. So obviously through security, through secondary means. And if you're looking right at it, you can't really describe it. This is one of those. See, it's happening right now, even with me. It's fucking up with my mind. Okay, so I don't know. This is just one of those SCPs that's like, I guess, would never be understood. I mean, up to a certain extent.
This makes 055 easily one of the most dangerous SCPs known to the Foundation, as no one knows anything about it. Think of any other dangerous SCP, and imagine how much worse it would be if the Foundation couldn't retain any knowledge about it. It seems that at least one attempt has been made to destroy 055, or to move it to another site, but it failed for unknown reasons. One theory is that 055 was planted by a third party in the Foundation site in order to observe or interfere with the site, other sites, humans around the world, other SCPs, or worse. But the Foundation has no idea where to even begin to confirm this theory. It's then brought up that the only thing that 055 allows us to remember about it is that it is an anti-meme, and perhaps the Foundation could make some notes about what 055 isn't, rather than what it is. This leads to the only other fact we know about it, the fact that 055 is definitely not a sphere. That's all pretty trippy, but it should give you a good idea of the basic concept of anti-memetics.
Okay, somewhat. I mean, kind of like this guy right here. My head's, maybe it just might be the headphones that's hurting my head right now. But, okay, anti-memetics already messing with my mind.
Let's dive a little deeper down the rabbit hole. SCP-3211 is a bit of an odd one, and to properly explain it, I have to spoil the rather clever effect if you're interested in reading it beforehand. When someone reads the article for 3211, a timer for 6 minutes begins ticking down. The SCP itself is relatively mundane, but different people will be provided different anomalous objects. These different objects range from gloves with portals that lead into an individual's mouth, the false memory of a French military cannon, a container of silly putty that makes people miserable, a toaster that prevents people from finding the end of its cord, and so on. All of these different objects have the same secondary effect in common. After 6 minutes of exposure, an observer will be unable to perceive any information about the SCP or perceive the SCP itself. They can, however, recall what the SCP was, such as a toaster. People exposed to SCP-3211 recall it as different objects, however, like I explained. Each object features the same experiment logs. A D-class comes in, writes down what the object is, and then can no longer perceive the object or what they wrote after 6 minutes. Using various tests, researchers confirm that the object in the room has the same mass and other physical qualities as it should. They also all feature an incident log, in which a doctor took a nestic without authorization, entered the containment chamber, and recorded an audio log on their observations. I've talked about nestics before, as a chemical that allows an individual to perceive something that they're not meant to. In other words, nullifying the anti-memetic effects. The doctor remarks that if you're reading his log, you know as well as he does that SCP-3211 is the object you've been reading about, i.e., a toaster. He's not sure why it's trying to hide that fact from everyone, but after 6 minutes, unless you're on nestics, you'll just remember him rambling about an empty containment chamber. He goes on to discuss how it seems that everyone that looks at 3211 will see it as something different, and it also seems to be based on the person's expectations. Someone working for the Foundation, expecting it to be anomalous, will see something anomalous. A fresh D-class, with no exposure to the anomalous, will see it as something normal. The Doctor is convinced, though, that 3211 is the object you've been reading about, i.e. a toaster, and he claims that everyone who encounters it will see it as such. After 6 minutes, though, it will replace that memory you have of the toaster with something else, which is why everyone claims it's something else.
Okay, so it's a toaster originally, but then once the timer hits down, which I wonder if that's actually true from the actual website. I mean, that's pretty cool. Then you start picturing as something else, like as you said, the SCP personnel. I'm not gonna lie, this thing is kind of hurting my head. I think it's the hair. As far as someone from the SCP Foundation thinking that it would be anomalous, it's gonna see an anomalous type thing. If it's a normal D-class personnel, they're gonna just see something normal. Oh god, this is a lot harder video than I thought it was gonna be. Okay.
The Amnestic begins messing with the Doctor's head. He mentions that 3211 replaced his original memory with a memory of his dead son, and then he passes out. After 6 minutes have passed by, we all see the same document, describing 3211 as an unknown object, entity, or concept. By this point, we each can recall information about what we believe 3211 to be. Again, i.e. a toaster. But we can't gain any new information about it. There's a list of various objects that people have claimed 3211 to be, and it's possible that one of them is the object you've been reading about. Everything else in the article now shows that 3211's containment cell is empty. This means that the object we thought was 3211 was actually just a false memory implanted in our heads after originally observing it for 6 minutes. And no one has any idea what 3211 actually is, or why it's hiding. Yeah, that's pretty trippy and complicated, but ultimately it's not that much different than 055, just a bit more involved. Let's try something just a little bit different and look at an anti-memetic person.
Okay, person. It's gonna be might be a little bit easier for me actually kind of grasp my knowledge on quote-unquote knowledge. No. See, I'm like this cat right now just staring at the Exploring series. Just like, what are you doing to me? You're hurting my head.
SCP-3393. The article is written specifically for 3393 to be reading it, addressing them as you. All information about 3393 is subject to anti-memetic properties, along with their physical presence, but this can be overridden with Amnestics. Somehow they have gained level 4 security clearance, and all attempts to revoke that clearance have failed. The Foundation have so far concluded a number of facts about them, with 90% certainty. They are a corporeal entity with a physical body. They seek out any information about themselves on the Foundation's servers in order to alter or delete it. Their anti-memetic properties can be transferred to documents. They have a strong resistance to memetic agents, and they are confined to a single Foundation site. Finally, they've concluded that 3393 is either someone named Dr. Mackey, or the result of Dr. Mackey's research. Pretty much all information about Mackey and what he was working on is completely hidden due to the anti-memetic properties. One of the documents altered by 3393 reads, "I wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to exist. At least not like this. But let me deal with it. This thing that I am is best kept away from all of you. Don't try to analyze me or test me or whatever. I don't want any of you to catch what I have. Just call me self-containing and we'll be good."
Self-containing, and the fact that I almost said Mr. Mackey, and I thought of South Park, but Dr. Mackey, probably something dealt with his research, as he said, and Not sure if it was something maybe he created or if that's himself. I don't know if he said it or not, because this thing is throwing me for a loop. This has been the hardest video SCP-wise to understand. Uh, but, I mean, it doesn't seem to have any negative effects, I think. I don't know, from what I can tell, from what I remember. Maybe it's working on me right now, trying to make me forget about it. Damn, man. You gotta really give it to the people who write these SCPs, man. They really got a good way of, like, especially AntiMemetics, they got a good way of messing with your mind.
The article then lists a few plans that the Foundation attempted to try and contain 3393. Their first attempt involved evacuating the facility and having an MTF sweep through to find them, which failed. Their second attempt involved putting in some paralyzing memetic agents in some documents about 3393, which they knew 3393 would try and access. This also failed, proving the entity's memetic resistance. Their next plan is titled Bait the Hook and is still pending. The end of the document reveals that their current plan is to monitor the terminal containing this document and sealing the room after it's been accessed. Presumably, 3393 is now contained. You might be noticing a bit of a trend with anti-memetic SCPs, as they tend to be a bit more on the meta side. Anti-memetics in general are a bit out of the norm compared to many SCPs, and there is a whole series of connected, trippy tales relating to the Foundation's AntiMemetics Division. Those tales probably deserve their own video, so for now I just want to discuss one more SCP. SCP-3125. The containment procedures for 3125 start off pretty normal. A cube-shaped room with layers of lead and soundproofing, and an airlock that only allows one person in the room at a time. However, no coherent information of any kind is allowed to leave the containment cell after someone enters, so the person is dosed with amnestic gas as they exit. Then, instead of a description, all we see is a keypad. Punch in 5 number 5s, and let's enter. We're hit immediately with a twist in the containment procedures. That containment cell isn't holding 3125. Instead, it's the only place in existence where 3125 isn't present, meaning that 3125 is located everywhere in reality. So what is it? I'll quote the article itself here.
Hold on, before he actually gets more into detail with it. So, obviously, I expected it to be in the room, or to be the room, if that makes sense, like an actual thing inside a room or the actual room itself. But the fact that this little enclosed area is the only place that it's not at. I don't know why this is the case or why it would be the case, and that's everywhere else. Obviously, I believe he said existence. I'm pretty sure he didn't say world, but okay. Let's see what more detail he gives.
SCP-3125 is an extremely large, highly aggressive, anomalous, metastasized meme complex originating externally to our reality and now partially intersecting it. That's a bit of a mouthful, but basically it's an organic collection of memetic concepts larger than our reality that is now spreading into ours. That might still be too much to take in, so to further simplify, it's a living collection of ideas and thoughts, completely alien to our own. And so when a human comes into contact with this collection, it completely alters their way of thinking. Throughout this series, I've discussed memetic hazards at various points, something anomalous that, when seen or heard, can change a person's thoughts, or otherwise impact their brain. 3125 is pretty much the pinnacle of memetic hazards, altering a person's brain to the point of they can no longer be considered human, as they exist to only further spread the concepts of 3125. Fortunately, 3125 isn't fully present in this universe yet, but when it is, the Foundation predicts that all human thought will be replaced in less than a day. Humanity as a concept will cease to exist.
Does anybody have a guess as to what I feel like I'm always trying to pinpoint a certain thing to something, but obviously this is dealing with reality. Um, it's seeping into our reality, and it would destroy the human race or our world in terms of thoughts.
Along with other abstract concepts like civilization, culture, society, family, and so on.
Okay, so concepts, not the. Okay, so if you were to destroy the. Okay, I feel like I got some of it at least. If you were destroying a concept, right, as far as um, you forget to eat, guess what? You'll starve. You forget to drink water. And if you were to do this on a mass scale, I mean, obviously, it's not fully into that reality at least. So it kind of seems to like it would be limited in what it can and can't do. So it would take, and they said it would take about a day for it to fully, I guess, like infect the whole world or affect the whole world. And I wonder if this would extend not only to humans but also animals.
Really unfortunately, the Foundation has no way to stop this eventuality, as whenever they begin to form a complete picture of 3125, that allows it to perceive the observer as well, killing them. What's worse, this attack is both partially physical and mental, and attacks individuals who have similar thoughts and ideas to the observer, including others in a research group and close family members. This attack also removes any information about 3125 from our existence, further allowing it to evade detection until it can fully enter our reality. One would need a safe location where they could learn of 3125's existence without being attacked by it. A location like this shielded containment cell. Unfortunately, if a person leaves that cell with knowledge of 3125, they will be promptly attacked by it, thus the amnestic gas. Still, unfortunately, one person entering that cell and learning about 3125, which is what we're doing right now, doesn't help stop or defeat 3125. There is a proposal for a complex machine that could theoretically be capable of neutralizing 3125, but there's no way it could be built within the confines of this cell, or without the builders knowing its purpose. So, 3125 isn't anti-memetic because we are not mentally able to perceive it like the others, or because we quickly forget about it.
Wait, so then as far as the room, what is it about this room that makes that possible? I mean, is it symbols? Is it just the material that's made of, and maybe they can't find that material anywhere else in the world? And as far as the machine building, I mean, they could work with the Church of the Broken God, maybe? And I don't know. It just seems like, as far as the room itself, did they find it? Was it created by the SCP Foundation? Did they find it and then? I think, especially like, essentially how it was created, or if it was just found and they have no idea why it was there, and how would they have even known that this antimemetic can't really be in that area? I mean, unless it's like someone went in and then they went out, and then obviously the antimemetic was trying to kill them. But I don't know. God, this SCP, man. It's getting to me.
But instead because it just kills us and some other people we know whenever we do perceive it. Either way, the Foundation really knows very little about it, including how and when this containment cell was even built. However, the public containment procedures state that a senior staff member of the AntiMemetics Division should enter the room every 6 weeks, just so they can learn about 3125, and maybe in time realize a way to stop it. I said before that 3125 had only partially intersected our reality, which has had some side effects. In short, 3125's presence is responsible for thousands of different memetic and anti-memetic forms around the world, both anomalous and mundane. Some of these are contained by the Foundation, but many are not. That's only a small problem overall though, but it gets worse as people begin to look into these hazards. Not that long ago, there had been hundreds of different institutions studying memetics, including government agencies, private corporations, universities, and divisions within groups of interest. Now, only the Foundation's AntiMemetics Division exists. The reason for this is that if one studies these memes and anti-memes for long enough, they'll stumble across a connection to one another. That connection leads to SCP-3125, and once these groups learn of 3125, it wipes them out in an instant. This is happening
Okay, so 3125 is essentially the head honcho in the anti-memetics or memetics aspect. But before I forget, I was trying to save it to the end, but I feel like I'm going to forget it because anti-memetics. But how long? Does anyone know like a term of length, or is there not specified a time where it would fully start to seep in, or is fully early in our reality? And is there a purpose as to why it's doing this? Maybe it's just doing it because that's what it does. Maybe that's just how it was written as a document. Maybe it was just wants to maybe rule in a certain way to a certain extent. But and then as soon as you figure out about it and you see that connection between the other ones, that it immediately just kills you. Now, is it kind of like a thing where it just snaps its fingers, boom, you're dead, fall down, or does it get other people or other SCPs or other beings to do it for it? I don't. He just keeps saying that they die or you get killed instantly. So I'm assuming they just drop dead then, from what I'm hearing.
to the AntiMemetics Division as well, but they're holding on longer due to their training and access to amnestics. Basically, they are at war with an enemy that they cannot perceive. There may be some hope though, as analysis of architectural diagrams of another site revealed what seems to be another safe containment cell, but 1,000 times larger. It's 210 meters below ground, its airlock is hermetically sealed, and they have no idea when it was built or why, but it looks like it would protect from 3125. A note from Marion Wheeler, head of the AntiMemetics Division, says that this chamber was built to house that theoretical device that could neutralize 3125. People have been working on that device inside that cell for an unknown amount of time, cut off from the rest of the world, while the AntiMemetics Division has been buying any time they could. They haven't broken the seal yet to signal the completion of the device, but she's going to go down there and use it herself. She finishes the note by claiming that if you're reading this, that means she failed, and the world has been altered by 3125. Presumably, this is not the case, as another note is added a couple years later, written by Marion's husband. He says that he found her body, and then reveals that there is more than one AntiMemetics Division within the Foundation, each as invisible as the next. There, of course, is also another gigantic containment cell, supposedly containing another version of the machine. He says that he's going to go to that cell and try the machine, and hopes that whoever is reading this will follow the same basic strategy, until it works. Well, that's certainly a bit more complex than 055. The AntiMemetics storyline is ongoing, and I don't really have a proper ending to offer you. It's another metaphysical concept, like pattern screamers, that is far outside of the norm of SCP writing, but is incredibly fascinating when you wrap your head around it. Not every monster has to be some slavering abomination or a fiend that hunts you down in the night. Some monsters can be a little trickier than that, because how can you kill something that you don't know exists?
Alright, let's go ahead and talk about that for a minute. Man, my hair's really messed up right now, but this has been the hardest video to try to fully understand kind of what's going on. I don't know if it's because I keep wanting to place a certain thing, structure, person, being, whatever it is, to something, but the fact that they're supposed to mess with the mind really at least helps me know that it worked on me at least. So I couldn't even imagine myself in that type of universe. But as far as the last one was the one that was the longer out of all of them, so it kind of gave me more things to think about. as far as like, as I said during the video, is how do people have an estimation of when it would fully come into our reality? Does it have a specific purpose, reasoning, want? How, in fact, as far as like it killing people that find out about it, how exactly does that happen, right? Like if it happens instantly, they just drop dead, or just kind of what the case is there. As far as finding the other room, so it can be built, and obviously I'm pretty sure it would have to do with some kind of maybe specific special material, maybe to use an SCP to create these rooms. Maybe an SCP was used and the SCP Foundation didn't know. But then again, they said that it was created. I think they said the SCP Foundation actually did make this one. Well, in any case, 3125 is trying to make me not talk a whole lot in this video, huh? But yeah, we saw that the first female that was going in there to do it, to use it, failed. We saw that the next person is going in there, and that the fact that the AntiMemetics, as far as he said, storyline. But then again, came out about 2 years ago. It's still going on, so I don't know if it's still going on today, to this day. But if it is, it's gonna be really hard to follow. So, I mean, definitely something for those people who really like things that are like twisty and just want to make your mind go in circles. This is the video for you. So other than that, really don't have much else to say. I couldn't really even think of anything else. I'm trying really hard to understand what's going on, but if someone can clear up some of the things, at least, or maybe put it into words that I could understand in the comments below, I'd really appreciate it. And also just a quick little snippet if you've listened to this far. Tomorrow also is going to be me releasing some more gameplay footage of the Space Marine game. It might be a little longer just depending on how things go. I finally got some time to record some more, but I'm going to be playing it today, which is actually the day before this video comes out. So on the, what day is it today? The 9th Pacific Standard Time, I recorded the part 11 to Hell's Reach, this one, AntiMemetics, and I'm going to record some gameplay, although that one is not going to come out until possibly on the 10th, probably later on at night, just so that way it's not completely spamming your feed with videos, and they're kind of spread out to a certain extent. So if you made it this far, now you know that. So I'm going to keep sneaking in, not necessarily these little gems, but like just a little extra bits of information. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, really does help me a lot. Hit that dislike button if you didn't like it. It helps me for the channel. If you're curious to see what's coming up next, check the description down below. You're going to see a list of about 5 videos. Top to bottom is going to be how I view them. Until then, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.